While we might have rusty bodies, us veterans still have a dog in the fight. And each day, we wake up and fight our own battles. But giving up is not an option.
You ride every single day?
I train 7 days a week. Usually that's riding, weightlifting about 3 or 4 days a week, some sort of yoga, probably once, twice a week. And then every day I do body work, whether that's stretching, mobility, stuff like that, just to make sure that I'm ready to go for the next day. My name is Caleb Cline, and I'm born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. My current occupation is I am an assistant general agent. So in layman's terms, I'm a manager with American National Insurance Agency. Growing up in Las Vegas for me, I thought was amazing. A lot of opportunities. Every year that I would come back, especially 2010 to 2019 while I was in the Army, it seemed like there was another project and the city just kept continuing to grow at an exponential rate. So I'm very happy to be back in the place that I know and love and call home. I was part of that 9/11 generation. I was actually making my lunch, preparing to go to school that morning, and I remember watching it on TV quite vividly. And at that point, I decided not only am I gonna join the Army, but I wanna go to West Point. I knew that I wanted to go to the place that made the best leaders, and quite frankly, it's actually the only school and the only college that I applied to. I was able to, what I consider, major in graduation by the time it came around to senior year, and throwing my hat in the air was probably one of the best experiences of my life, because as prestigious as West Point is, when you're there, it is a 47-month voluntary prison sentence. And so everything is gray, the walls are gray, the sky is gray, the uniforms are gray, and honestly, my mood for about 3 of those 4 years was pretty gray. From that period, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and the home of the infantry, spent about a year there, 2 unsuccessful Ranger School attempts, and finished the infantry basic officer leader course for lieutenants, and then moved to Fort Bliss, Texas, which is in El Paso, and was able to take over my first unit there pretty much upon arriving. And that was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. But that's also actually where my back injuries and problems started. So I was in charge of a striker platoon, which is about 44 guys. We have 4 vehicles, basically an 8-wheel tank. I served at Fort Benning, Georgia, in charge of a basic training company. And personally, this was one of the most rewarding things that I ever had the opportunity of doing, because I was able to influence civilians. Within 14 weeks, we would take somebody who had potentially never shot a weapon in their life, never carried a rucksack or even put on a uniform, and we would turn them into not just soldiers, but infantrymen. It was very impressive to be able to put our stamp on somebody, and I was actually able to rename the company. I took over as a first lieutenant, which was pretty rare. Normally captains take over the unit, and the battalion commander in charge saw some potential in me. I took over the worst company in the organization by metrics, but not by personnel. So when I showed up, I just explained to them, obviously you guys know what you hear about yourselves. We are currently ranked last. Do you want to maintain that, or do you want to change it? And within 90 days, we went from the worst to the best company, and then throughout my tenure, never relinquished that position. At that point though, my back injuries that I had mentioned from Fort Bliss really had started flaring back up. So when I had attempted to get things looked at and resolved when I was a platoon leader, I was told by our doctor at the time that all infantrymen had back pain and to go away. Well, come to find out, when I finally got an x-ray of my entire spine And then we shot some MRIs. There was herniated discs. I've got 3 curves in places that they shouldn't be with scoliosis. And it explained why my legs were going to sleep. My arms were going to sleep. I couldn't sleep at night. And it really was a quality of life problem that my wife said, you either go to the doctor or I'm going to take you, but either way, we're going to get some answers. And so at that point, I started the medical discharge process, of which I'm now 100% totally and permanently disabled from the Army. And I then really had to start reworking who am I? Because as I said, from age 9 to at this point, age, let's say 25, 26, everything about my life had been for service of country and others. And on my way out of Fort Benning, my goal was to, at that point, go and compete for Team USA in what's called the World Class Athlete Program. And I used to ride an upright bike that I would bend in half. It's called the time trial bike. So a lot of pressure on my spine. I'm obviously unable to do that now. In fact, I almost have the opposite body position. So I attempted it, and as you can see behind me, there's actually a tiny white flag that I received because while I was there and figuring out that I was capable of still training and explaining what my goals were while I was in the Army, they said that my determination and my care for others, I was the soldier picking up others and carrying them through the weekend. And so everybody signed that flag, and I carry that with me to all my races. And that was a time that I will never forget, because I was able to find myself and what I was able to do through my love of riding and training. And so they had then connected me locally with my VA representative through the recreational therapy program. And so while COVID sucked for a lot of different reasons, July the 6th, 2020, I got my first trike. And within about 6 weeks, I called the race director for a race called the Silver State 508, which is 500 miles. And at this point, I had not ridden over 50 miles. And he said, well, you sure have the tenacity, and I'm happy to take your money. So I showed up with one bike, a hope and a prayer, and I had no idea what I was doing, quite frankly. But we made it 300 miles before my bike broke. And that bike, after being fixed, I've now given that bike to another veteran who was having similar issues. While we might have rusty bodies, us veterans still have a dog in the fight. And each day, we wake up and fight our own battles. But giving up is not an option. Overall, I want to ensure that we have representation in all areas of sport, especially endurance. I want people to realize that no matter what is their unique ability, it is not going to hold them back from doing things if I can help it. While I had doctors tell me that I would never lift weights again, I would never load my spine again with a back squat, I've now competed in the 1,000-pound club challenge and done that twice, and I'm actually going to do it again tomorrow. That's lifting over 1,000 pounds in the back squat, deadlift, and bench press. What I would recommend to veterans or anybody searching for meaning is don't listen to the people that are telling you you can't do something. I have 2 kids. My oldest actually just turned 7 today. Her name is Zoe. And my youngest, her name is Ella. She is 5. They very much understand that we are an Army family. For me, I bring them to as many West Point events specifically as possible. In fact, I'm looking forward to next year's my 10-year reunion and to introduce them to the history and the culture and what has helped mold me into who I am today through that process. So this is Striker. He's my service dog. Thankfully, I was able to get him while I was active duty in the Army. Why I was glad to get Striker from her, 2 reasons. I was forced to get up every day because I now had somebody else to take care of. 2, he has helped me tremendously in getting outside of that shell, as I've already mentioned, but he also helps me with mobility support. So when we're doing these 1,000-mile bike races, he sits in the car, he watches me through the window. He's very intrigued as to why I'm not next to him, or he's taking a nap enjoying the sun in the seat. So I hurt myself in a striker, the 8-wheeled basically tank that I was using in the Army. Imagine yourself standing out of a sunroof to survey the street while you're driving. Well, that was me in a very massive vehicle with a 50 cal machine gun mounted next to my head. When you take that head first or nose first into the bottom of a few ditches, obviously that wreaks some havoc on your spine. Hence the herniations in my neck, my back, and the degenerating discs. So I told myself that if a striker broke me, then a striker would fix me. And that is how we came up with the name and have moved forward today. If you go to the link at the bottom of this video, you will see our website. It has information about Rusty Dogs of War, more of my story, other athletes that are a part of the team, or give me a call, 702-769-2014. My cell phone's always on, I'm always working because somebody always needs help, and that is very important to me. So our motto is service before self, and that will never change.